Currently, my main striker battleship is the Apocalypse Striker. Of course, I did fly the Megaton Striker in PvP for a bit. After that, I jumped in the Raven Striker, and here I am now in the Tempest Striker. Now, I had a nickname for each one of these ships. I usually like to call them by their EVE Online names. This ship would be the Vargur, which is the Marauder class battleship in EVE Online. This here is practically the equivalent to that ship, so that's how I will refer to this ship for some time. Now on to the stats. This ship has advanced large cannon upgrade bonus that will give you plus 5% large cannon damage, minus 5% large cannon activation time, plus 5% large cannon tracking speed. Of course, that's per level. Advanced Battleship Command will give you minus 4% signature reduction. Now the first three bonuses that you can see there are pretty good, but this one I would say it's a little bit weird, because if you enter the siege mode, for example, your ship is not going to move, it's going to be stationary. So in that case, your signature doesn't matter, you are going to get hit in any case, unless you snipe with this ship. This ship has 2 drones, 7 high slots, 4 medium slots, 6 low slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs. As with other Minmatar ships, you can make it shield or armor. I personally prefer shield tank on my ships, but I'm pretty sure you can develop a armor tank build on this striker. Now, in most cases, my strikers don't have a tank. I make the ships to be a glass cannon. I'm mostly focusing on DPS or range. The rest of the stats are okay. I like the capacitor on this ship. It is actually very good. And of course the signature, it is still quite big, even though it has the reduction bonus active. So yeah, that bonus is kinda weird. I'll admit, that signature reduction bonus is kinda weird. And this ship is not that slow, it's actually quite fast. Now let me show you the fit that I have on this ship. Now I have 2 builds. One is a close range brawler, one is for PvP, and the third one is a sniper. The first build is for PvE. I have large autocannons. Overall they have good stats, good range, I'd say good tracking. Of course the tracking can be a bit better. 2028.14 DPS, which is good because I don't have any gyro stabilizers installed at the moment, so this is the coldest possible DPS that you can have on this ship if it's built in this way. Now as for the rigs, well, I went full on DPS on this ship as I did with my other 3 strikers, and here you can see the integrations. Now I tried to make something that will work with both autocannons and artillery, and this is I think the most perfect option that you can have if you plan to use both autocannons and artillery on this ship. Artillery for sniping, autocannons for mid to close range combat. I would say for this ship, because people told me that this ship should have the highest alpha damage in the game, I did kinda want to make it a sniper. Now this is the close range brawling PvP fit, triple adaptives and triple large extenders. Should give you a decent amount of protection for some time. Now I would replace that neutralizer into a Nosferatu just to keep the capacitor up and running, or you can swap a capacitor battery instead of one adaptive in the mobility field. I'll show you that fit after I show you the resistances with 3 of the adaptives. Almost 300,000 hit points. That's actually a lot, despite the ship not having like any resistance rigs installed. It's made for DPS, so you can easily get a lot of a lot of resistances and a lot of hit points on this ship. Now, let me check the velocity. Yeah, in siege mode you are not going to move at all, so the signature reduction bonus in siege mode is kinda useless on this ship. 3018.01 DPS in siege mode, that's actually pretty good. The damage bonus is quite noticeable. The alpha damage is going to be very good. Yep, it gives plus 100% damage on all weapon systems. Of course, you lose tracking, you lose other things, but you get that DPS and of course you get that alpha damage. With the capacitor battery, 6 minutes flat, that's actually okay. Now of course you will lose a little bit of resistances, but if you don't want to use a capacitor battery, then you can use 1 or 2 Nosferatus in the medium slots. Although I would say dual webs is something that I would personally like. Now this is the glass cannon fit that I will most likely use in PvP with this ship. 3 gyro stabilizers, 1 tracking computer. Now I have 1 shield extender there, just in case, but my Apocalypse Striker doesn't have that, so you can easily swap that one out for another tracking computer. That way you should have decent tracking, decent range, and of course pretty good DPS. Of course you will not have any tank, but if you are in a fleet then it should run pretty well. Okay, well, let's take a look at the DPS and range with this build, and of course let's take a look at the afterburner velocity. Let's open this up. Well, it's not that slow. I did expect the ship to be a little bit faster. You can definitely make it a lot faster than this. My rigs are not quite focused on speed on this ship. Alright, well, let's enter siege mode. 3.3, almost 3.4 thousand DPS with siege mode, without any gyro stabilizer active. With 1 active, the DPS should be 4.2 thousand. Alright, not bad at all. That looks pretty good. With the second one active, it's 5.1 thousand. Alright, we are slowly climbing towards 6,000. Hopefully 6,000 with the third one. Well, it's actually close. 5.7 thousand. It's actually very good. Not bad. Almost 6,000 DPS for 44 seconds. That's actually kinda scary. Now, outside of the siege mode, the DPS should be around 3.3, 3.5 thousand. 51 kilometer range with the tracking computers. You can keep that range for 20 seconds, which is enough to shoot down any frigate or any cruiser that is trying to tackle the ship. This ship is one of the rare ships that can track an Ortus orbiting at 40-45 kilometers. The Vargur is actually pretty dangerous and overall very good for both PvP and PvE. 0.54 tracking in the siege mode, that's actually very bad, but in siege mode you should have your target webbed and scrambled. That way you are not going to miss them. That's actually one of the tactics that I like with these battleships. With dual computers active, 63.8 kilometers accuracy fall-off and optimal range at 13.71, which is good. The stats so far are very satisfying for me, and overall this ship looks to be so far very good. Alright, well, now on to my favorite build on this ship with the large artillery. Now I'm using C types, not B types, not A types, and of course not X types. So far they are way out of my budget. So when I get the higher tier modules, I'm definitely going to try them out. Now it has a 60-kilometer optimal range, actually looks to be okay. Tracking is low on large artillery, so keep that in mind. Tracking computers are a must on these turrets. Now I have 3 gyro stabilizers and dual tracking computers. Now I don't quite need 3 gyros for this, so I will just replace one in another tracking computer. Now I have 3 tracking computers. Should give me pretty good range, and overall should be able to hit a lot of targets at decent distances. Now let's take a look at the DPS in siege mode. Almost 2.1 thousand. It's actually very good. The alpha damage looks to be very nice. Alright, now we're talking about a very interesting build that I might use for nefarious reasons in the future in nullsec. Alright, with 1 gyro it's 2.6 thousand DPS, not bad for large artillery. With dual it's 3.1 thousand, it's still very good. And with 3 active it should be 3.5 thousand. Yeah, it's 3.5 thousand. It's very good for large artillery. Actually kinda scary, to be honest. Not quite sure if I can push more DPS out of this ship. I'm pretty sure I can. And of course outside of the siege mode it's 2.4 thousand. And again, that's a very good number. Almost the cold DPS on my Macarial with the same build, which is interesting. Now onto the range. With both active, 110 kilometer, 108 kilometer accuracy fall-off, optimal 110 kilometers, which is good. So it should be hitting targets up to 220, 250 kilometers. And yeah, I'm very happy with that range. With 1 computer active, it's at 87 km optimal, 87 km accuracy fall-off. Very balanced, I would say. Although kinda weird that they are so close. Interesting. Haven't paid much attention to that. Must be the same on the Macarial as well, because the Macarial is overall a little bit. I would say the Macarial is a little bit better in terms of DPS, but it's also a lot more expensive. 129, 123 kilometers with 3 tracking computers, and that is actually very good. I think if I were to use this ship for very interesting stuff, I would definitely use it with 3 tracking computers, just for that extra range and tracking. Well then, so far, I like how this ship looks. It's so far very interesting on paper. Now, of course, it will be time to take this ship out for a spin to see how it actually performs. Now, I plan to use both fits here, both the brawling fit and of course the sniper fit. I'm very curious to see the alpha damage on the sniper fit. I've been told that this ship has the highest alpha out of all ships, so I'm very excited to test that out. Well then, here we are, a little bit far away from these ships, but that's fine. Now, also a perfect opportunity to test out the siege mode on frigates, destroyers. If you remember, when I was flying the Raven Striker, that thing couldn't hit anything in siege mode. Was hitting interceptors for like 7 damage or 1 damage. Like, yeah, that was very funny, very silly. And from all the strikers, the Raven Striker is, I believe, one of the least used ones, at least for PvE. That ship has a lot of uses for PvP. Quite effective against dreadnoughts, against stations and other very big targets. Now the rest of the strikers have very good siege modes, quite applicable for basically anything, including PvP or PvE, or even if you want to shoot down capitals or, you know, shooting down stations, then yeah, they can be used. Now, I'm quite surprised so far. I was able to hit some targets in siege mode, although hitting frigates at this range is a little bit difficult. Now, later on you will see me trying out some things with this ship. Did not hit that frigate in siege mode at this distance, but I noticed this ship does hit small targets in siege mode with tracking computers at 150 plus kilometers. So if you want to use this ship as a sniper primarily, it works very well. In siege mode you can technically hit small targets. If I was able to hit a frigate, then I'm pretty sure at that distance you are going to be able to hit a cruiser as well. Now the cruiser was, of course, or the frigate wasn't moving that fast, so if you're in siege mode and if you are shooting at a target that's far away, moving very quickly, then you're not gonna hit that target. In that case, you should turn off the siege mode, because if you do that, then you are going to have enough tracking to hit them at long range. So overall, the siege mode on this ship so far appears to be working quite well. Almost perfect, of course. Some things need to be, on my end here, improved. For example, I have to improve my timings with focusing fire, and of course with cycling the modules. That's just something that I usually never cycle my modules. I just turn them all at once, and of course dish out as much damage as possible until the effect ends. Let's see. Now, I'm quite happy with the tracking, and of course quite happy with the siege mode on this ship. But one thing that I feel like isn't as I have expected is the alpha damage. Now, the alpha damage is not bad at all, it's actually very good. But I've been told that the alpha damage on this thing is actually higher than on the Macarial. Now, my highest ever recorded hit on the Macarial was around, I believe, 25,000, although I believe I did hit something at 40,000 with large artillery. With this ship, I'm not hitting that much. I'm hitting around 10,000, 15,000, 16,000, which is still very good. But it is a little bit lower than the alpha that I had on the Macarial. So that's basically the one thing that I noticed that's unexpected, but overall I cannot complain about the alpha damage. In siege mode it hits basically anything that I was shooting, except those two frigates at the start. Alright, well, let me just quickly remove that battleship. Alright, now we have more frigates on grid. If you are a sniper, if you are doing missions in a snipe build ship, then you should always be aligned and always shoot down the small ships first, because they can be the most, they do pose the highest threat to a sniper. Right, let's shoot down the other destroyer now. One thing, basically you can do one hit per tracking computer, so that basically means you can go with 3 hits in a row using one tracking computer per cycle, or you can use all three if you just need to shoot down a single target at a very long range. Now I'm at 130 kilometers, and I'm actually hitting targets at this distance. Now I was quite surprised. I did not expect this to happen, because I didn't hit most small ships at this range. But watch what happens when I have my tracking computers up and running. That bomber will be the next primary target. Now keep in mind, the target must be moving slow, or it must be stationary in order to hit at this range in siege mode. If it's moving, or if it's not webbed or not stationary, then you are most likely going to miss. Then at very long range, that shouldn't be a problem. Even if they are moving a little bit, you should have enough tracking to hit them, which is good. Makes this ship one of the best snipers in the game. Now, with the tornado, I did manage to make it hit at over 450 kilometers. So my longest hit was at around 450, and I did pop a frigate, or it was a destroyer. It happened a couple months ago when I was flying the Tornado as my primary ship for a while. Did do some very silly stuff with it, but that ship is built for silly stuff, so I'm pretty sure that I would be able to push out over 500 kilometer range on the Trollnado if I did buy better rigs for that ship. But because I lose the Tornado a lot often, I lose the Tornado very often, because I like to throw it at very silly stuff. You're about to see something like that very soon. I'm working on that as we speak. Well then, speaking of long distances, let's go on a little target practice with this ship. Now I'm 413 kilometers away from these ships. Let's see if I can hit that ship from this range. Now I know this range is a little bit extreme, but well, why not? Let's see what this ship can do. Now the target painter is not gonna help much at this range, but it helps at confidence. And now let's see. Well, it hits, alright. Not gonna complain about that. If you see that one frigate that you don't like just sitting there a couple hundred kilometers away, you can just slap that frigate like no big deal. And now let's go towards the brawling fit on this ship. Now personally, I prefer to use this ship as a sniper. I felt a lot more comfortable flying this ship as a long range. Now it goes without saying that the brawling fit is also pretty good. It works very well. This is basically my personal favorite fit for any close range, mid-range PvE battleship. You have dual webs and a scrambler as defense against any incoming pirates. Mainly works very good against frigates. Of course, that's why I have the neutralizer. Neutralizer on this ship is very good. Now I have the capacitor battery because of the neutralizer, although if you don't use it, then your capacitor is stable with everything running except of the neutralizer. So it's not quite necessary to have one if you are doing the high sec encounters, but if you go into low security systems, then having a neutralizer is quite important. Now, like I've mentioned before, this ship is one of the rare ships that can hit an Ortus orbiting at 40-45 kilometers even without a tracking computer. Now, I've seen a lot of these ships run tracking computers, and I would say it's a very smart idea to run tracking computers on this ship, especially good at repelling incoming pirates. And of course, I'm talking about my personal experience here. I got hit by these ships a lot. I remember did have to tackle one a couple weeks ago in Null Sack. It did have enough tracking to hit me at 50 kilometers. Of course, I had a fleet to help me because we were hunting. But if I were solo, I'd be in trouble because I was not able to tank this ship for long in a Ortus. So very good Ortus counters are showing up lately, and this ship is one of them. Now against frigates, well, I've seen a lot of them for some reason like to go into scrambler range. I have dual Predator webs and a Republic fleet scrambler. Any frigate that comes close to this ship gets webbed and scrambled and neutralized. Basically, once they lose their capacitor, the ship will just delete any frigate that's around it. So you don't have to worry about frigates or interceptors. For some reason, I've seen a lot of interceptors like to go inside of the Balgorn zone of nope, which is around 40 kilometers now. Not quite sure why that's the case. So if you fly this ship and if you have a fit similar to this, then a frigate is not going to be a problem, or a cruiser is not going to be a problem. And now, of course, don't shoot them in siege mode. If you get tackled, if you web and scramble your target, then turn off the siege mode, because even if you web and scramble a frigate, even if they're moving at 20 meters per second, you are not going to hit them in the siege mode with the ship at that range. Well then, that was a fun ride in the Tempest striker. I gotta say, my favorite sniper overall, as for battleships, of course, my favorite sniper overall is the Tornado. But for battleships, the Tempest is actually pretty good. I like the ship. Now, one thing that I would change on this ship is definitely the other skill bonus, because while yeah, it's fast, it goes 1.4 kilometers per second with the micro updrive. In siege mode, the signature penalty bonus is kinda useless because you are going to be stationary, you're not going to be moving. So that's, I think, the one and only weak spot. It's that secondary bonus. But besides that, ship is actually amazing. I love it. Surprisingly, I love this ship. And overall, I have to say, I kinda like all strikers that I did fly. I like these ships. They all have their very unique things about them, and they're all good in their respective ways. Well then, hope that you enjoyed. It was a fun ride with the ship again, and well, with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.